Pedro Alonso López, known as the Monster of the Andes, is one of the most prolific and terrifying serial killers in history. His chilling confessions and heinous crimes shocked the world and left a horrifying legacy of violence in South America. Stay with us as we delve into the story of Pedro Alonso López, a predator who preyed on society's most vulnerable and whose monstrous acts still haunt us today. Born in 1948 in Colombia, Pedro Alonso López's early life was marked by unimaginable hardship and abuse. He was one of 13 children in a poor family, and his mother, a sex worker, often exposed him to violence and neglect. At the age of 8, López was thrown out of his home after being caught molesting his younger sister. Alone on the streets, López quickly became a target for predators. He was kidnapped by a man, sexually assaulted, and left traumatized. These early experiences shaped López into the monster he would become. As he grew older, López turned to petty crime to survive. By his teenage years he was in and out of prison, where he claimed to have been further abused. His hatred for society deepened, and his disturbing fantasies began to take hold. In his early 20s, López started his murderous rampage, traveling across Colombia, Peru, and Ecuador, targeting young girls from poor rural communities. Posing as a friendly figure, he would lure his victims with promises of gifts or small amounts of money, taking advantage of their innocence and trust. López's method was as cold as it was calculated. He would lead his victims to remote locations, far from the eyes of any witnesses, where he would brutally assault and strangle them. After the murders, he would often bury the bodies or leave them in shallow graves. López confessed that he preferred killing during daylight hours because he wanted to see the light leave their eyes. His twisted need for control and his lack of empathy made him one of the most dangerous predators imaginable. By the late 1970s, López had killed hundreds of young girls, yet authorities remained unaware of the extent of his crimes. The police in Ecuador, where many of his murders occurred, had no idea they were dealing with a serial killer. López's luck ran out in 1980 when a flash flood unearthed several of his victims' bodies. The gruesome discovery led to López's capture when he was caught attempting to abduct another girl. Once in custody, López stunned investigators by confessing to the murders of more than 300 young girls across 3 countries. López's confession was met with disbelief. The authorities struggled to comprehend the scale of his crimes, and many initially thought he was exaggerating to gain attention. However, López led police to multiple burial sites where they discovered the remains of dozens of his victims, confirming the horrifying truth. His detailed knowledge of the crimes and the sheer number of bodies recovered left no doubt that López was one of the most prolific serial killers the world had ever seen. During interviews, López showed no remorse. He described his murders with chilling indifference, calling his victims his little dolls. He claimed that he was helping them by killing them, sparing them from a life of hardship. The lack of empathy and the cold, calculated manner in which he described his actions revealed the depth of his depravity. In 1983, López was convicted of the murders in Ecuador and sentenced to life in prison. However, due to Ecuador's lenient laws at the time, his sentence was reduced to just 16 years. In 1994, López was released after serving only 14 years in prison, despite his confessions and the monstrous nature of his crimes. He was deported to Colombia, where he was briefly imprisoned for another murder, but was released again after a short sentence. After his release, López disappeared. Rumors circulated that he was still alive and free, possibly continuing his killing spree. To this day, his whereabouts remain unknown. Some believe he is still out there, while others speculate that he may have been killed by vigilantes or rivals. Despite multiple manhunts and attempts to track him down, Pedro Alonso López has never been found, and his current status remains one of the most chilling mysteries in criminal history.